Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today we'll be watching another Lost in the Pond video. This one is 5 surprising things Americans have said to me. So are we going on the 5 surprisingly dumb things Americans have said to you, or or what? Because that's the only thing that makes sense here, right? All right, let's go.
And welcome to this week's episode of Lost in the Pond. I'm Lawrence Brown, the editor of Lost in the Pond, and guess what? This week I'm going to be talking about 5 surprising things the odd American, sometimes very odd American.
Is Lost in the Pond something other than just his like little YouTube channel? Because when he said editor, it kind of like threw me off there. Like, are there other people involved in this channel, or is it him just saying that he's the editor, the big cheese, the everything?
Has said to me over the years since I've been here. It's obviously we get the usual things, such as, you know, all of the language differences come up in conversation. But then there are those little things that happen occasionally that are almost so fleeting I almost forget about them, but they are nonetheless worthy of note. And they are each interactions that I think you viewers would get a kick out of, or at least relate to in some way. And so I just want to touch upon those right now, starting with number 1. So I moved to the United States about...
Interesting. I wonder why a lot of Americans think that Christmas specifically is only an American tradition. Now, I can't remember if it directly started in the UK. I do know, for instance, they used to have the original Christmas trees were actually upside down when they were made. So people used to use Christmas trees, but they had them like tilted. So that was more interesting. But there's no way people think Christmas is only a U.S. thing, right? Are people really that dumb? Don't answer that.
About 5-6 weeks before Christmas of 2008. And so naturally some of the first questions that came up.
I mean, it is considered what, Boxing Day? Is that the other term for it? But yeah, I was like...
were Christmas related. I was obviously learning quite a lot about how Christmas works here. In other words, I was looking under the Christmas tree for the crackers, couldn't find them anywhere, and was wondering why most people weren't eating turkey and didn't seem to understand the concept.
That's because too many people had turkey at Thanksgiving. A lot of people do Thanksgiving or Christmas turkeys as well. But I mean, like my family, we eat so much turkey from Thanksgiving up through halfway through the December. For Christmas, it's Christmas steak dinner.
Concept of Christmas pudding. But then something quite out of the blue happened at one dinner table conversation when I was asked 100% sincerely, do you guys celebrate Christmas in England? I mean...
No. Of course they do.
I could have gone with no, we don't. And in fact, the film Love Actually is just, you know, a fictional representation of how we celebrate the holidays. That would have been an entirely different film. Now that
I mean, to be fair, a lot of people living in every random country only really pay attention to their own holidays. If I moved to Germany, I would have almost no clue what the major holidays were. Now, for instance, like South Korea, they started recently celebrating Halloween a lot more like intensely than they used to, which is pretty interesting because Halloween in the U.S. versus Halloween in Korea is wildly different, but still a lot of similarities. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I think a lot of people just don't pay attention to anything outside their immediate vicinity.
think about it, wouldn't it? Because, well, for one, Alan Rickman wouldn't have been found out by Emma Thompson because he wouldn't have bought that present for the other lady, and therefore there'd be no reason for Emma to call him out on it. He'd have gotten away with it, is what I'm saying. So Christmas nearly ruined their marriage. And then there was Colin Firth's character, you know, who was probably isolated in the south of France, where I was writing a book. Now this one happened last year while I was in an ice cream.
You look British. Is it the sideburns, maybe?
I was standing at the counter. I was getting ready to give my order for what I wanted. And the person behind the counter suddenly, without warning, said, "You look so British."
Well, okay, so unless he walked in there and he was totally silent the whole time and didn't say anything, then he was probably talking to someone, or maybe mumbling to himself about the flavors, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's British from the way from his accent." So this one kind of makes sense, and then it also makes sense in the fact that a lot of people in the U.S. when they're working customer service jobs, just never shut up. I mean, I've worked customer service jobs, and you don't have anything else to do. You might as well talk to someone.
And I hadn't even opened my mouth at this point, so apparently I carry with me a look that is British.
I don't know. It's either the sideburns. It could be something else he was wearing. It could be just his face in general. But I don't know. I think he probably did say something at some point when he walked in.
British, and I'm not just talking about Doctor Who t-shirts, because that day I was in fact just dressed in plain clothes. Could have been.
Okay, to be fair, a lot of people in the U.S. have no idea who the heck Doctor Who is anyway. A lot of people do, but a lot of people still don't.
Anybody. I think it was the teeth, but I can't tell. Maybe it was the eyebrows. You tell me, is there something very distinctive about a British person physically, other than the clothes and the teeth and the bad hair, that sets us apart from other people around?
I don't know. I'm going to guess he actually said something to someone, or just was mumbling to himself about the flavors. That's the only thing that makes sense, or it's those sideburns.
The freckles. Now, this one actually brought me immense joy, because usually when an American asks me where I'm from, I hold up my hand, not like I'm in court, but sort of as a vague representation of Britain, right? And I point to pretty much where I am. Otherwise, no one is going to have heard of it. It's a small fishing town called Grimsby on the East Coast. Well, after about the 104th time of doing this, I encountered one person who'd not only heard of Grimsby, but had been there and had eaten fish and chips from there.
Oh, I thought they were going to be like, "Oh, I've been to your hometown. It's in Michigan, right?"
I couldn't believe it. Sort of blew me away. There've been one or two sort of varied instances.
Yeah, there's also a 50-50 chance that other person just was a pathological liar and they just like lying about saying it. So I would totally go up to someone and be like, "Oh yeah, I've been there, but it's in the middle of nowhere." "Oh yeah."
Instances of this, because recently I was editing a book for a colleague, and in that very book she'd written a little anecdote about the mother of the central person about whom the book is written, and that mother, to my great surprise as I was reading through, was from the town of Cleethorpes, which is just adjoined to Grimsby. Was actually the place.
Perfect pause point. I like how a lot of the UK towns have all these fantastically unique names, but then if you really think about it, there's some weird names in every probably part of the world.
Place that I was born, technically speaking, and it was referencing all these places, that I'd been to in my youth, like the Winter Gardens, which I know means nothing to any of you except anybody who might be watching from Cleethorpes. But I went there a lot as a youth and watched a lot of metal bands. I got that out of my system early.
I don't know. Yeah, this guy just does not seem like anyone who would actually go and regularly attend metal music type stuff, but awesome.
Always little references to where you grew up that you see in America that sort of astonish you. In fact, I remember Kate Middleton, before her first baby's gender was revealed, was in Grimsby, and it was reported by the Huffington Post that there was some rumor going around about the actual gender being slipped at this event in Grimsby. I couldn't care less at that time about the baby. I was more concerned that the Huffington Post mentioned my little hometown. This unique interest in such references began when I was 8 years old, when I went on holiday to Florida. Not by myself.
I think that kind of holds true for every little town. You're like, "Oh my gosh, this person visited us. Oh my gosh, this person came from our high school. That's fantastic. Oh wait, they haven't been back since they left after high school because they hated our town? Ah, that doesn't matter. They used to live here.
Oh, that would be mental. I was with my parents that day, that entire 2.5 weeks. And we went in Epcot Centre to a sort of authentic British restaurant. And on the menu, sure enough, fish and chips. But not just any old fish and chips. They were fresh Grimsby fish and chips, and I haven't yet checked into the validity behind the freshness of those fish and chips. But I survived. Now, I suppose...
Are you saying they were good or they weren't good? I mean, Epcot's usually pretty good at least pretending to be authentic.
This one shouldn't come as any kind of surprise, since it is kind of the cliche question that we Brits like to think all Americans ask us Brits whenever we interact. As a matter of fact, I've only ever had this happen once.
Who would even ask this question? It's the exact opposite, or the exact question is like, do you know the president? Yeah, I know who the president is. No, I don't know him. Have you met him? Maybe.
But this is one of those stereotypes that I thought, surely there's no way this is really true. There's no way I'm going to be asked if I know the Queen. Well, it happened, and it happened.
Oh my... What, once? I mean, from another idiot?
Happened very gloriously, in fact, in front of a room of people.
Perfect.
So I sort of sat there for a second.
Was he drunk?
And pondered the question, as you do. And I said this: do you know Paul Jenkins from Terre Haute? And he said, no. And I said, well, of course you don't. I mean, Indiana is a state of 6 million people, yet the UK comprises 60-odd million people. Some of them very odd. So I didn't go into that. So once I worked...
Yeah, I was like, that's the dumbest question ever. That person either had to be drunk or was just dumb.
Worked in customer service, and I remember this one particular moment when I placed an outbound call to one particular gentleman whose first question was, am I calling from Australia? Now, that's not the surprising part, so that happened quite routinely, in fact. The surprising part came after, so I responded with, no, actually, I'm calling from Indianapolis. And and so he said, well, I don't know any Australian people living in Indianapolis. And I said, well, sir, neither do I. I just need you to pay your bill today. And he was having none of it and promptly hung up. Can't decide if he did that because I asked him for money or if he just didn't like.
No, I mean, he just did to hang up. He's like, yeah, I just don't know anyone. Every time people call me, they're like, hey, do you want this loan or do you want this blah blah blah? And I'm like, yeah, I don't. I'm a renter. I don't do that.
Australian people. Either way, I've moved on from the heartbreak of that.
So many telemarketer calls every day.
And so that's all we've got time for this week. If you feel like becoming immersed in what I do here at Lost in the Pond and get more information on my travels around the United States, please follow us at lostinthepond.com. Go there right now. Or you can follow us.
There's an actual website? Okay, I didn't know that. I'm going to check that out.
On Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest, and right here at YouTube by clicking subscribe. Be on the lookout, by the way, for my new podcast. It's coming to SoundCloud on September 22nd, and that's going to be me and my wife bickering, or rather discussing things. Probably bickering and discussing things.
Okay, that was pretty funny. Okay, so I guess the editor quip from the beginning actually makes a bit more sense now. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, we'll check out some more of their videos. Have a good day.